All right. So for this Hangman project, we're going to kind of build all the pieces that we believe based off the demo, what is needed. Now, there may be some things that you have decided that you want to have more than that. You guys could play around with this and use some really cool ASCII art um, for what you're displaying if they get it right or wrong. For how you're building the Hangman, I'm okay with that. I think that would be really cool and it would make it unique to you. But for planning out, this is a little bit of a much larger project. You guys had the opportunity to plan out for rock, paper, scissors. Some of you guys are still working on it, and that's okay. But using some type of project management software is really helpful for you to make sure that you have all the pieces necessary, make sure that you're staying on task with what you need to develop, and to make sure that your code has all of those features that you want to have in your game. So for example, I have a card that I created. So all of these are just lists. And I broke them down into like an agile sprint type framework. So we have a features backlog. This is all the stuff that we want to put into our program. We have our area where we can plan what we want to go into the next sprint. So this would be the sprint after the one that we're on. A sprint is really a period of time that either individually or as a group you have an understanding of when you have to have those pieces of code done. So since this is a larger project, this would make perfect sense for us to break this up into what we want to make sure that we have developed basically at checkpoints. When the sprint is done, those pieces of code that you said that you're going to develop need to be developed. You don't want to let everything wait until the very end and then hope you can finish it in time. So if I was looking at having the display for the Hangman as the next sprint that I was doing, that next week happened, this is what I'm on, this is what I need to develop. I am managing where I need to be by writing comments on this. If I'm doing some research to make sure that I have this and I understand how to do it, I'm writing comments or little code snippets in here so that I can keep track of what I want to do. So here I create a display of Hangman for 15 mistakes. Must use a method to draw the Hangman based on the number of mistakes that is taken as a parameter. Example, public static string show display, and it has a parameter of number wrong. So if I had 2 wrong up to this point, then I need to display a Hangman with 2 body parts, or however you want to do your Hangman, but it would be 2 parts. I can add checklist in here to identify all the individual pieces that I need to do. This is only really useful if you're actually using it though. So we're going to develop this as a class, all the pieces that we need for Hangman, but it's up to you to actually be filling this out, to use it for commenting, to check off stuff, to check it daily, find out what you need to do. You don't need to be looking at other stuff. When you have your sprint up, you know exactly what you have to be developing until it's done for that sprint. So for here, I'm not working on anything in my features backlog or my next sprint until I have the stuff for the current sprint done. Once I have it done, I need to manage my time wisely, because I need to get someone to review this code to make sure that it's working how it's supposed to. I need them to try to break it to see if it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, so that I can try to have it fixed, and at the same time still working on stuff that's in my current sprint. Okay. Once I've had a person do a peer review of it, then I can move it to done, and I know that I've addressed those issues. If someone else ends up looking at it and identifies a bug, they can create cards for it, things like that, but That's basically what it's for. So features backlog should have all the cards of all of the different features that need to be developed for your program. I use games because games make sense for features, but any program, if we were looking at creating the next better Microsoft Office type project program, we would know that we would have to have ultimately a very large card for Microsoft Word, a very large card for PowerPoint, a very large card for Excel, and then inside that would probably have their own individual cards of things that would have to be developed for each piece of what I would want to see or have the user see when they're actually using my program, so that I can plan out my code. There are certain things that would make more sense for me to develop that I could test instead of trying to write out the entire program and then finding out that stuff is broken. This creating a display of the Hangman, before I even started any of my other stuff, this is actually what I developed first. I actually wrote this code first because I figured, you know what, I could quickly just do a for loop, check that code with all of the mistakes to see, is it really building that man exactly how I want it to, make some tweaks and stuff. All right, I've checked my code. Now I can go on to the next thing. What's the next thing? So you're testing your stuff as you're doing it. You're not just writing it. You're constantly trying to run the program, check those individual pieces. The sprints that you're on should always have a focus to have runnable code that you can show you have met that current sprint requirements. Okay. When you come to the end of a sprint, you can't just say, well, I got a broken program, it's not working. That when you're looking at sprints is really a non-issue, and you have to have that code working. Okay, so you should plan what you're going to do in your sprint for what you could have accomplished in that time to make sure you're going to hit your deadlines. You have a deadline that you're working towards. You don't want to end up letting all your features get backlogged until the very end. That's usually what ends up causing, like the AAA games or other companies, millions and millions of dollars in fines because they end up not hitting their deadline for products that they say that they're going to have done. Okay, so we're going to go over Trello. We're going to build Hangman of the different features that we are going to need and what's going to need to be in each feature. We're going to do that as a class, and then you guys are going to start playing with coding BAT with tutorials point, doing the proper research, making sure that you understand the code, and then running those pieces using methods. I had at least 6 methods in my code. You may end up having more. You may end up having a little less. If your code is redundant or there is not logic that's encapsulated, it makes it a lot harder to read for everyone. So that's where we actually are going to start breaking up our code into pieces, into blocks, which is what a method is, which is just like a mini program. Okay? All right.